Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Future Picks podcast. I'm your host, Clarissa Jenkins. In this special two-part series, we're pulling back the curtain on how to launch and deliver an effective airline consulting project. For part one, we're zeroing in on the foundational building blocks that set a digital transformation project up for success, long before kickoff. Joining me are Varad Hizabazar, Senior Consultant, and Kin Chow, Principal Consultant here at Branchspace. These two bring serious experience and expertise to the table, and today they break down how to balance speed to market with governance, how to earn stakeholder trust early on, and why solid prep work is the real secret to smooth delivery. We also discuss the industry trends that are shaping their work and the lessons they've learned along the way. So, make sure you're ready to take notes on the practical tips they offer, including the 4 pillars that Kin employs for robust decision-making and collaboration during those crucial weeks leading up to the project launch. Let's get into it. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome both Varad and Kin to the Future Picks podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having us today.
Thanks, Clarissa.
I want to get right into it. We have a lot of material to cover and a lot of great insights from the both of you. So to start off, Varad, let's start with you. Can you share a snapshot of your journey and what inspired you to join Branchspace, especially to focus on laying the ground for client projects?
Absolutely. So to begin with, I'm a lifelong aviation enthusiast. Growing up, I was my family's unofficial travel agent, always hunting down creative routings, lowest fares, and the best ways to earn miles. At the same time, I've always been drawn to disruptive technology, having spent 3 or so years for an NLP startup before joining Branchspace. And so what stood out to me about Branchspace was that it allows me to bring together my passion for aviation and emerging technology. I also believe we are at a pivotal moment in airline retailing. The shift to offer and order will fundamentally change how airlines market and deliver their products. And as a customer, you'll be able to get more personalized content, making the travel experience hopefully a lot easier and also more enjoyable. So with platforms like Amadeus Nevio already gaining traction, I think the broader industry impact is just around the corner. And it's really energizing to be part of a team, part of an initiative shaping the future of an industry I'm passionate about.
Well, strong start right there. A lot of passions coming together throughout your entire life. And we're really excited to have you here. And now, Kin, you've led several discovery and scoping engagements with major airlines. What motivated you to bring that strategic skill set to Branchspace?
Yeah, I think my story is quite similar as well. I have an interest in aviation since I was a teenager. So my connection with aviation started long before my consulting career. I was an air cadet when I was a teenager in Hong Kong, and I think that experience has taught me very early on about discipline, structure, and let me learn about the operational complexity behind aviation. So it has sparked a lifelong fascination with how this industry works, not just in the skies, but also behind the scenes. Professionally, I've spent the past decade supporting airlines in large-scale digital transformations. I started my career in IATA, and I've also worked in Air Canada. I think what drew me to Branchspace was the opportunity for me to be at the forefront of reshaping airline retail from the inside out, because I've spent much of my career helping organizations navigate ambiguity in large-scale transformations. So I saw that Branchspace offers a very rare combination, that space for me to leverage my technical depth and my strategic vision, and allow me to use my ability to act fast. So as a principal consultant, I was excited to bring in that strategic lens, whether it's about helping clients define their sourcing roadmap or driving decision-making clarity across multiple executive and layers of stakeholders. I wanted to be a part of a team that doesn't only just deliver projects, but elevates the way airlines approach changes.
And that's exactly what we do here at Branchspace. You both have very unique backgrounds and passions. And so it's really cool to hear about those two paths leading to the same place, which is here at Branchspace. And now that both of your passions and areas of expertise are contributing to Branchspace's consulting projects, could you describe your roles more and key daily responsibilities? We'll hear from Broad first and then Kin.
Of course. So I'm a senior consultant at Branchspace, and in my role, I lead client engagements focused on commercial IT transformation in the airline space. My background in strategy consulting helps me connect the big picture vision with the practical on the ground execution. So right now, I'm working on two quite different projects. One is helping an airline deliver a specific technical capability in the near term, while the other is more strategic, advising a large airline group on how modern airline retailing can bring about long-term competitive advantage. So in terms of what a typical day looks like for me, no day is the same. One day I might be running client workshops, another I might be designing solutions or preparing executive presentations. I stay involved across the whole project lifecycle, from gathering requirements to supporting architects to QA. I also get to attend industry events like Future Travel Experience, which is a great way to stay connected with what's happening in the industry. So on the whole, for me, it's the variety between the strategic and the tactical work at Branchspace which keeps things exciting on a daily basis. On Chicken.
Yeah, so I'm a principal consultant at Branchspace. So I also lead some of our most strategic and end-to-end engagements with tier one airlines across Europe. My focus is on shaping and delivering complex digital strategies, whether that means driving offer and order transformations or designing governance models that help accelerate delivery with quality. So on a typical day, I could be facilitating um, a high impact scoping workshop or mapping out digital capability roadmap with an airline or working directly with a C-level stakeholder to navigate trade-offs and align on strategic priorities. Externally, I also engage in business development conversations, listening to the challenges that airlines face and shaping how Branchspace can best support them. Internally, I also help mentor our consultants on project delivery, agile and safe practices, business analysis, and stakeholder communication. So ensuring that we consistently deliver both with precision and impact. I think at its core, my role is about connecting strategy with execution. So I thrive on taking big, complex visions and translating them into actionable roadmaps for our clients, bringing that clarity, pace, and confidence to every engagement.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much for those backgrounds and telling us a bit more about your roles here at Branchspace. Now I'd like to dive into like what you said, Kin, the core of what you do and ask some more project related questions. So back to you, Varad, when we're thinking about that crucial pre-launch phase, how do you effectively review an airline's current technological ecosystem?
That's a great question, Clarissa. So at Branchspace, we have over a decade of experience working with airlines. So we really understand the typical systems landscape found within them. But we also know that every client has their own nuances, business priorities, and even cultural ways of working. So our review process is very structured. In the lead up to the project kickoff, we send out a targeted questionnaire based on our scope. Usually these covers areas like architecture maturity, integration, and governance, but this can vary depending on the scope. Then during the kickoff, which is ideally done in person, we walk through these responses with both the technical architects and the commercial stakeholders, which is really important because at the end of the day, we're solving a business problem through technology and not just a technical problem. After the kickoff, within 1 to 2 weeks, we deliver our as-is analysis, which becomes the foundation to everything that follows. And it is the context that this gives us, which allows us to design solutions that actually work in their environment.
That's really great to hear, Varad. That level of detail and structured approach, I'm sure, really establishes trust and a solid foundation for a project's launch. Transitioning off of that, you mentioned governance. And so, Kin, I know you've led strategic planning for airline retail projects involving everything from sourcing decisions to delivery model transformation. When it comes to early stage project scoping, what practices have proven most valuable in setting up teams for success?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe what sets a project up for success is precision in scope combined with clarity in governance. So that means defining the why behind the work just as rigorously as the what. One example is in a project that I led for a global international carrier in Europe. It's when we did scoping for an agent user interface project, we didn't just capture requirements, but we also look into the motivations of our stakeholders. What are their key initiatives in their 3-year roadmap, and surface those design constraints and align on what success should look like across all the 10 different user groups that we have. And I also insist on structuring RAID tracking from the beginning and a decision log from day one. Because when you're leading in high stakes airline environments, ambiguity isn't just inefficient, but it can also bring a huge risk later on in a project. So I believe good scoping really builds momentum, and that helps us to set the foundation for success for any projects.
I really want to hone in on a couple keywords you mentioned there. One was the why and the what, but also the timeline. You mentioned a 3-year roadmap, which I think is really concrete because every project, can last of different timelines and implementation, but it's good to go in with these goals and timelines in mind from the very beginning. And you also mentioned the 10 user groups and ID tracking to avoid ambiguity. So you're already thinking about the consumers, the customers, the different personas that go into dynamic retailing and how to personalize the experience, but also how to deliver that with efficiency and to make sure that everyone is aligned through that tracking process. That's really great to hear. Back to you, Varad, taking a step out from Branchspace operations, you mentioned attending some industry events. Do you feel that these expand your industry knowledge or even inspire some ideas on how to approach future projects?
100%. Industry events are incredibly valuable to stay on top of what's evolving across the aviation ecosystem. Being in the same room, auditorium, whatever you want to call it, as airlines, vendors, and fellow consultants creates this rich environment to share knowledge. And these insights often translate directly into the work that we do with the clients. So let me give you an example. A few weeks ago, we attended FT Dublin, which really sharpened my thinking around some trends we're already seeing on the ground. So one standout theme was the growing strategic importance of ancillaries. These are not just an extra source of revenue anymore, but as a central pillar of commercial strategy. So it's increasingly clear that airlines can't rely just on ticket sales alone, and that there's this momentum building around dynamic pricing, personalized offers, and loyalty linked bundles. And this aligns closely with how we are supporting clients today, helping them shift from the static product models to more flexible, customer centric retailing approaches.
And with that said, ancillaries is a very hot topic. You're right, those dynamic ancillaries and personalized bundles. When you mentioned creating a knowledge sharing environment, that's a really good way, really good term to use, and maybe something that people don't necessarily think about because these events are featuring not only airlines, but even some competing vendors. But we want to make sure that we're still sharing the knowledge within the industry to create this harmonious grammar and harmonious mindset so that we're progressing towards those digital transformations that we talk so much about. And for Kin, I'm sure that knowledge sharing environment is beneficial during project setup. So, Kin, in your experience, what does this environment look like to help build trust and establish maybe a rhythm between Branchspace and client stakeholders, particularly in those early weeks of project launch?
Yeah, at Branchspace, we believe in creating environments that's open and encourage people to exchange knowledge. And we believe establishing early rhythm is critical in building trust and setting the trajectory of the projects. So I mainly focus on, I would say, three key principles. The first one is setting the tone with structure and share ownership. So from day one, we lead with clarity, very clear objectives, roles, responsibilities, key business goals, and deliverables. With one of my airline clients, for example, we kick off with high impact discovery working sessions that were designed to be inclusive and outcome oriented. Everyone from digital to commercial had a seat at the table so that at the beginning we were able to align on our project goals based on the initiatives and objectives that every team has individually. I think this creates an immediate engagement and a sense that we're building with the client together, we're in it together. So it's not just about delivering, but we're building things together. I think the second key principle that I have is earn trust through visible follow through. So I believe credibility is built when input translates into actions. So if there's a concern, we encourage people to raise as soon as they see one so that we can address and communicate back as soon as possible. And when we see a blocker, we lock it, escalate it if it's needed. Having that visibility helps solve any problems or issues and close the loop efficiently. And that level of consistency builds trust, not just with our project sponsors, but across all the operational teams we work with in a project as well to deliver success. And the third key principle I have is to foster high confidence, can do mindset within the team. I think that's very critical for project success because airline environments are inherently very complex. Ambiguity, legacy systems, and competing priorities are very normal. It's a day-to-day thing. So we believe creating that confidence in projects not by promising simplicity, but by showing consistent monitoring and control of the project. And when teams see that we manage complexity calmly and decisively, it sets a tone of professional assurance to our clients. And it's not about rushing, it's about showing that we're aligned, prepared, and capable of executing with precision and purpose. So I think together these three principles create a rhythm that's grounded, collaborative, and delivery focused from day one that helps Branchspace earn our stakeholder confidence and builds real momentum from the start.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Those 3 hot tips off the press straight from Kin. And one thing I noticed during those 3 key elements is they feed into one another. So when you set a clear tone with goals and roles, it's easier to follow through. In other words, actions speak louder than words. And then that also enables you to foster confidence in that can-do attitude because everyone's on the same track. You're practicing high bandwidth communication and everyone feels confident in their role and the trajectory of the project. So that's really great to hear. And I'm going to ask another question, Kin, expanding on that a little bit. You have created a multi-stream governance system or model for top European carriers. For those large-scale airline projects, I want to know more about what's a good way to set up decision-making and collaboration early on so that, for example, business teams, IT, and leadership all stay aligned.
Absolutely. This project, for example, we face a very tight timeline with just 4 weeks to deliver a complete cost benefit and governance model analysis across 3 domains in this project. So governance had to be very tight and purposeful from day one. I would say I anchored the setup around 4 key pillars. The first one is when we think about setting up this model, we think about what are the different domains within the projects so that we can set up a domain-based streams within the projects. So structuring work into 3 parallel streams, each with dedicated stream leads and very clear deliverables for the stream. So this allowed us to go deep without losing integration. And secondly, it's a lean governance framework that's built for velocity. So in week 1, we roll out a lean toolkit, project charter, RCI, RID matrix, and a cadence of stream syncs, cross-stream check-ins, and also most importantly, steering committee meetings as well. So it kept decision-making process very sharp and aligned. At the beginning, we know exactly what meetings there will be, where and when the catch-ups will be, so that we make sure while the streams are delivering their work, they are also able to communicate with each other to make sure all updates are shared openly across the whole project team. And the third pillar, I would say, it's outcome first mindset. I believe we set up every governance layer for it to be tied to very tangible outputs. So like capability gaps, we had benchmarking summary, a total cost of ownership model, etc., all tied in together. So that ensure that we understand the dependency of the outcome and what are the most important outcome within the project, so we stay grounded in the business value that we want to deliver. And the fourth pillar, it's embedded alignment, I would say. So we build in constant feedback loops with the teams that we work with in the project. So it's a cross-functional project. So we have IT, we have commercial leads, we have our clients, technical providers who are external. After we build in this constant feedback loop, by the time we reach the executive deck, the alignment was already locked in through the feedback loops that we've set up in the projects. So with these 4 pillars, we were able to deliver a data-backed strategic recommendation on time within that 4-week time frame that we were given. Also with the full stakeholder buy-in we hope to achieve from the beginning. So it's a model that I continue to use, making sure projects have this 4-pillar governance model set up from the beginning so that we're fast, we're structured, and laser focused on outcomes.
Again, more just amazing tips, giving away all of our secrets. No, just kidding. But that feedback loop is really great to hear, because right now we're talking about that pre-project, strategy, but later on, we'll get into the, during project work, and we want to make sure we have those feedback loops so that we're staying on top of what you said, the domain-based streams. We want to make sure we're constantly optimizing, reiterating, and improving ourselves. And just because something was set up one way in the beginning, through our agility and great governance that you set up for us, we can adapt quickly and optimize and still stay on target with the goals and KPIs and the timelines, like you mentioned. Varad, how are you doing over there? We still got you?
Going strong.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I want to hone back in on you. We've been talking a lot about positive aspects and, the great expertise on how to set up a project for success. But I would love to know more if you've ever encountered a situation where a project maybe struggled a bit due to inadequate preparation, and how did you address that moving forward?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Clarissa. And while I would hope that all our projects work smoothly from start to finish, that's not always the case. The assessment process that I described to you in the previous question, it's thorough. However, we've encountered situations where critical elements of the project or components emerge later on. And when this happens, we also, again, have a systematic approach to solve them. First one is that we evaluate whether this new information affects our approach or it's affecting the recommendation that we are going to propose to the client. Regardless of whether it does or not, we conduct a review of exactly why we missed this information. So was it because we didn't interview a particular stakeholder? Or is it a system integration that we didn't document, or an assumption that we made but we didn't necessarily validate to the extent that we should? And then we do a broader sweep to identify any potential blind spots that we might have missed. And when we do this, we get a good understanding whether or not it's going to affect the approach or our recommendation. And then we can basically align, whether it be internally or collaborate with the client and work with them to make sure that we come back on track. And all in all, this is essentially key for us to learn from. And this obviously strengthens both the current project and also future assessments that we'll be doing with other clients.
Yeah, exactly. It will definitely strengthen the future approach. And I love that you're being very honest and saying that you're going back and asking yourself, what did we miss? Not just, okay, we have an issue, how do we solve it? But being introspective and asking what did we miss? What pitfalls did we have? Who did we not interview to make sure that it doesn't happen again? But also to be honest with our clients and our stakeholders, and establish that integrity moving forward. So thank you so much for that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Kin, because we're talking about timelines, and when timelines are tight and clients want to jump straight into delivery, how do you maybe push back or negotiate space for foundational planning without losing trust?
Right, that's a good question, because we always have to find the right balance, whether to push back or stick with someone's request. I think my level of saying no is often less about the what, but more about the why or why now. What the exact impact is in my judgment of saying no. When timelines compress, as they often do in every project, I elevate the conversation in analyzing and valuing the risk. For example, at a meeting with a regional carrier client in Europe that I have, when there was pressure to bypass early governance setup to go straight to execution, I immediately noticed that I have to push back on that, because foundational planning is very key in ensuring successful delivery at a later stage. So my approach to that is I walk leadership through what misalignment could cost to the carrier. It could be not just the cost, but also time that we're losing. It could cost X months down the line of delay if we don't have a proper foundation set up for projects. So using very realistic delivery scenarios and analysis of the impacts, I was able to reframe the planning as acceleration for the project. If we spend 2 weeks earlier clarifying our roles and responsibilities, what are the dependencies, how do we track changes, risk, and other things in the project, how do we plan for our cutover in the future, we save X number of weeks of rework later. So that helps our client in understanding the trade-off in their requests and making sure that they can rethink and actually consider our idea in setting up the foundation for the project at that stage. And senior clients would respect our clarification and our analysis and make the right decision from our advice. It's not about resisting urgency, but it's about making sure we have a successful foundation for the project and ensuring delivery.
Okay, so it sounds like even if your first thought is to maybe push back a bit, it sounds like you're doing the due diligence to really analyze everything behind the request. And sometimes it can be about compromise as well. It's not just a yes or a no. You're maybe sometimes trying to meet in the middle to make sure that everything is addressed and that our customers are happy and the end consumers will be happy, but we are still utilizing our expertise and knowledge on the situation.
Right.
And Varad, I'm also curious to understand more about your recent projects. For example, was there an early decision that had unexpectedly good results or a significant effect after the launch or implementation of the project?
Yeah, that's a tough one there, Clarissa. Let me think. So on a recent transformation project for a major airline, we realized early on that our entire transition roadmap, which was the key deliverable, depended on specific capabilities from the airline's PSS provider. And if those capabilities weren't delivered on time or at all, the whole solution would be redundant. So we made a key decision early on, which was to, instead of assuming the supplier roadmap, we would have the roadmap uh, validated from the supplier themselves in the first place. This meant sitting down with the PSS provider to understand not just what they plan to build, but when and what will be the technical specifications. We were lucky that the airline was very supportive on fostering that collaboration. And what this gave us was firm boundaries to work within. And this became the backbone of our entire implementation plan. It allowed us to build a realistic transition roadmap, but also we were able to conduct a cost sizing assessment to give the airline greater information on exactly how much it would cost, not only when they would need to deliver certain milestones, helped us prioritize features intelligently, and also face the transformation in a way that aligned with what the airline was looking to deliver for its customers. So looking back, this validation exercise was absolutely critical. And without it, we could have built a solution that relied on functionality that didn't exist or was not aligned to what we were delivering to the client. And now this validation with the external providers is a common practice for us, as it just makes sure that we'll be delivering something that is feasible in the long term and practical and not just theory.
You mentioned speaking and meeting with a PSS provider. Is the quick follow-up question, is that routine during transformation projects to regularly meet with all of the vendors and other technological providers that the airline uses? Or does it happen more often when there are these roadblocks that come up and you need information from that vendor?
So I think generally it depends on the scope that we're trying to deliver. Usually when there's such big dependency on the supplier, then we would ask the customer before we even start working on the project to ensure that there's collaboration or an avenue for us to communicate with the PSS provider or whoever the supplier is. But often in time when we're working directly with the airline on the internal processes rather than necessarily having a lot of dependency with third party, we tend not to engage too much with the PSS providers. And a sort of follow up point on that, at Branchspace, we have a rich pool of employees who come from various different PSS providers. So we already have a lot of knowledge internally that we can tap into, which really helps when we've got some questions that necessarily we can't get answers directly either from the customer or the PSS provider might not be easily reachable for whatever reason.
Okay, so it can depend. That's another reason that it's important to remain flexible and agile, because every project can be slightly different and require, for those governance committees, require different members and different roles. And the last thing is, yeah, I really like that you mentioned the expertise that Branchspace brings in because of the background of so many of our employees, having that firsthand knowledge. So that's great to hear. And with that, we have reached the end of all of the formal questions. I have one more kind of fun closing question, and we'll start with Kin for her response. And that is, what are the top 2 destinations on your bucket list?
On my bucket list, I mean, there are way too many. Way too. I really like Nepal for traveling. Because I did a trek to the Everest Base Camp 2 years ago, and I always want to go back because it's just beautiful up there in the mountains, and life is simple, and you just realize how tiny you are on Earth. And second one, I would say Japan because I love Japanese food. And growing up in East Asia, I had watched many Japanese dramas and have always been fascinated by their culture. So I've traveled to big cities like Tokyo and Osaka, but I still want to go back and explore smaller cities and enjoy Japanese food and tea.
And what about you, Varad? What are your top 2 destinations right now?
Top 2 destinations. Well, I really enjoy the outdoors a lot, and I'm a big scuba diver. And what's on my bucket list, at least for the next couple of years, is going to Raja Ampat, which is in Indonesia. The coral there is meant to be incredible, and you can get to see some really big wildlife or sea life actually. So Raja Ampat will be the first one, and the second one I would say Patagonia down in South America. I would love to do some hiking and mountaineering there. Hopefully, next few years I'll have a chance to do that.
Well, those are all responses that we've never heard before, and definitely adding those to my bucket list because I've never been to any of those. But that is great. Thank you again, both to Kin and Varad, part of the consulting team here at Branchspace, for joining us, giving all of us those great insights and tips about how to approach project management and governance during those early phases. Is there any last minute words or things that you would like to say before we hop off today?
I just realized we have quite a few of mountain lovers, so we can probably organize a trip together.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have a lot of outdoorsy people. I'm there for that. But yeah, just thank you so much for taking the time today. As everyone knows, you are both part of the Branchspace consulting team. So if anyone here is interested to learn more about what Branchspace can do for your airline digital transformation journey, please go to our website, branchspace.com, and see all of the amazing transform services that we offer. And we would love to hear about you and learn about your, and who knows, maybe you'll be working directly with Kin and Varad in the future.
Thanks, Clarissa.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and we're out.